Welcome back to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. On today's show, it's our pleasure to be joined by Bruce Hemmelman and Angela Pilant. Angela Pilant has more than 25 years of experience working within the lighting and energy industries. She has a diverse background as a utility specialist, manufacturer's representative, and consultant. She has worked at Evergreen Energy Partners since 2009 and specializes in market and trend analysis, utility program development, client engagement strategies, and training. She is a certified instructor for the Building Operator Certification Program, BOC, and has earned a lighting certified professional designation from the NCQLP. You can find her LinkedIn on the Get a Grip on Lighting website. Bruce Hemmelman has more than 30 years of experience in lighting and lighting controls industries. He has worked for lighting and lighting controls manufacturers as a product and sales manager, as a manufacturer's representative, and currently as a consultant. His current focus is promoting market transformation, an adoption of Greg's favorite acronym, LLLC, Luminaire Level Lighting Controls. He loves that acronym. Working with the electrical specification, distribution, and contractor market segments. His LinkedIn will also be on the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast website, where you can click and find out more and connect with him. But before we go there, Greg, you always want to keep it easy in your life, right? You like to keep it easy?
I do.
Why don't you go down to KeystoneTech.com, the easy folks, the big easy, light made easy, KeystoneTech.com.
I will. I'll go there after this. But, for now, I want to tell you a little about them. And it relates perfectly to that intro of the LLLC. That's 3 L's. I got it right. Their smart loop system. I installed it at a school, and one of these teachers had some issues with the lights, didn't like how it was going, and said, I really want these lights to turn off, and I want these on. And, when you have to do that with normal controls, you have to go by zone.
Get the electrician in, yeah, for sure.
Yes, but when you have the smart loop system, you don't. I went there with my phone. I solved her problem in 2 minutes. And it was the happiest I've ever seen anyone. That I've been doing lighting forever. She was hugging me and was so thankful about it. And I'm like, how easy was that? I did that on my phone. I didn't even have to touch anything other than my phone. So advocate for it. In some cases, we're going to get into it more in the show, but Smart Loop's a great one.
Light made easy with KeystoneTech.com. Go to KeystoneTech.com. Of course, proud members, along with Greg and I, of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors. You got light bulbs in a warehouse out there? You listening to this? If you have light bulbs in a warehouse and you sell them over a counter, on the phone, on the internet, however you sell them, like in one of those ways, why aren't you a member of the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors? It's your damn duty to support your trade association. We're working hard over here, Greg Herrick.
We are. Join it.
So go to NEILD.org. Bruce, Angela, welcome to the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Greggy?
All right, we see in your bio here, you have two different things. So Evergreen Energy Partners, I see, and Better Bricks. What's the difference, and what are the two companies? Give us a rundown. I don't know who wants to tackle it.
Sure, I'll jump in if that's okay, Bruce.
Yeah.
So we wanted to share the betterbricks.com with your listeners, just because that's an initiative that Bruce and I are very fortunate to be working on, a market transformation initiative with NIA, and it all revolves around Luminaire Level Lighting Controls, LLLC. So it's a great website. There's a lot of information on there, case studies, white papers, downloadable items that you can use, flyers, things like that. So we wanted to share that with your listeners.
Got that. Okay. And then Evergreen Energy Partner, again, if you want to just give us a rundown on that.
Sure. That's a company that Bruce and I work for, actually. And it was founded almost 30 years ago. One thing that's unique about Evergreen, we have always been a virtual company. So we have never had a headquarters. We were actually, during the shutdowns and such, we were already ahead of the curve because we were already kind of living on Zoom and Teams. So sure. It's a great company, and we have a little over 100 employees across the country, and working on all sorts of initiatives.
Okay, and what would you say is your primary initiative?
Boy, that's kind of a hard one to answer. We have the privilege of working with a lot of mainly utility clients, I would say. So it really just depends on what they want us to focus on, what they need help with. So anything from lighting and controls that Bruce and I are doing to residential programs, electric vehicles. So yeah, it's really just what the clients, utility clients, need help with.
I'm going to throw this one over to Bruce. Bruce, who's your customer?
I'll tell you, Mike, just about everybody. In a given day, we might call it an end user. It's interesting that Greg was talking about school districts, one of our big customers, but we're working with architects, engineers, distributors, contractors, and end users. Really, our job right now is getting the good word about LLLC out in the market and talking about some of the advantages, talking about some of the reasons why to use it, and talk about the long-term benefits.
Are you
And
guys
so,
a not for profit? Are you not for profit?
correct.
No, yeah. I mean, our Evergreen is, but our client is a non for profit.
Evergreen is not a nonprofit, but Better Bricks
Correct.
is a nonprofit.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so Better Bricks is your customer. I would take it. They're the ones that you would invoice and that you're out in the world doing advocacy work for or whatever it is. Is that correct way to look at it?
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
when you guys are going out there, what specifically with Luminaire Level Lighting Controls are you advocating for? What are you telling people that's good about them?
Well, I think that really depends on the market segment that we're calling on at the individual time. If we're out calling on a specifier, we're going to talk about how writing specifications around LLC is much easier than a traditional lighting system. You're able to write your specifications based on performance and not having to write a very complex and integrated sequence of operations broken down by room and space and these things because you're able to make some of those modifications in the field that don't require a wiring ahead. And one of the biggest things that about LLC that's so powerful. And we take that same conversation, we apply it to distributors and say, okay, distributors, how do we promote this? From your materials that LLC is now on distributor stock shelves. We're seeing products that it's becoming infiltrated enough that it's on distributor shelves. How do we sell that to your contractor customers? When we're with the contractors, it's, hey, let's talk about installation, the ease of installation. You only need to bring power to these fixtures. Lastly, we're talking with end users. We're now providing you a solution. As Greg opened up with this, in we're providing a solution that's ever flexible, easy to change, and is really designed as their building changes and grows. The system's able to do that with it as well. And it's no longer bring a contractor in or an electrician back in and rewire your building. It's simply a matter of going to your programming tool and resetting your system. So, the part that's interesting about this and what makes I wouldn't say our job easy, but our job kind of fun is there's different avenues and different things that we're talking about in each level of the system, in each level of a project that is a little bit different. And every one of them has an advantage. Every one of them has a reason why they should consider LLC as a solution. And they're all very, very strong, legitimate reasons.
What
So
are the reasons not to do it though? That's my angle as the host of the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. Like, I love Greg's anecdote. It's always good when an install goes well and you can fix a problem quick. But I have been talking about on this show about the lighting controls boom bust cycle, Greg, since the beginning. No, something like that for a long time anyway.
Yeah.
And what I describe it as is that lighting controls seem to surge every 5 or 10 years. It's going to change the world. It started with relays and low voltage back in the late 90s. Then it came with Cat 5 cable connected. That was going to take over the world. And then recently we've seen the bankruptcy and foreclosure and so on of various lighting control companies. and leaving users with having to maintain their iPhone 6 because the software doesn't work with Android Marshmallow 2.7 or whatever the heck it is. So there, while I agree with you in the initial that all of the benefits of Luminaire level lighting controls seem to come at the commissioning level, is if it's ever commissioned. Lots of lighting control systems are not commissioned properly. We deal with that all the time. But what happens in 3 or 5 years? Will the components still be available, Bruce? Will is there cross manufacturer replaceability at the point of sensors and stuff like that? Like one of the things that we sell different kinds of sensors there. It doesn't really matter what brand they are, as long as they're the right voltage and the right beam spread on the passive infrared or ultrasonic or whatever. Customer can just install it if their sensor is burned out. I have a problem. I think there's a problem with that in Luminaire level lighting controls, that everyone's building their own system. And so if we look down the road 5 years from now, Bruce, what do you think the industry should be working on dealing with?
Well, I think that's a great question, and really it's the one that we come back to over and over. A lot of people have installed systems, in the past, and they ran into exactly the issues you talked about. Are they forward compatible? Are they, what happens if a manufacturer goes out of business? I would tell you that today a lot of the systems are still on the proprietary side, but manufacturers are making efforts. They've learned from their past mistakes. You're seeing systems that are no longer built around products that are hyper
proprietary.
You're looking at, they're saying, hey, these systems are coming out and we can use any Apple device, we can use any Android device. They're working on being able to be forward. You can update them. You're no longer stuck with the firmware that was shipped with it when it originally shipped. And we're working on things in systems like that. I think a lot of conversation in our industry is about, open protocols and those kinds of systems. And, you look at things like, Dolly and those kinds of systems, and maybe it's coming together. But I think we're making a lot of strides to try and make things as forward thinking and forward looking as we possibly can right now. You're seeing a movement to standardize batteries. You're seeing a movement to standardize openings. You're seeing, systems that are using 0 to 10 volt, as their main protocol. So if you ever had a problem, you could go back and, use the same wiring and those things. I think we're doing a better job of it, Michael, than we have in the past. And we're really looking forward to saying, hey, we've got to build a system now that's able to last 10 and 15 and 20 years, and grow with the building. One of the things that the biggest fall downs of past systems was if it wasn't that the system became obsolete, but the system that was installed, the space changed, and now the system no longer fits the space. It may still be working, but no longer fit the space. And today, that's one of the big things that we're able to do that, and getting updates and getting upgrades and getting those kinds of things is now a download and a push out to these devices rather than, coming in and replacing front ends and those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So,
and Angela, do you have anything to add to it?
No, I thought that was excellent, Bruce.
I got a question. I got a question for you, Angela. You work with a lot of building operators when you're doing their certifications, right? I find building operators, professional building operators, the people that are hardest to sell lighting controls to. Again, I'm not talking about new construction. I'm talking about an existing commercial property, industrial property. Like, yeah, we had a lighting control system, it didn't work, or we tried that, or this kind of thing comes up. What's different now for the building operators? What should we tell them?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I mean, I think one of the things that Bruce and the rest of the team and I try to share is just the future proofing of Luminaire Level Lighting Controls. And so, that means more to them than ever, because we kind of have seen a lot of these commercial buildings really shift in, kind of their schedules, right? It's a little more unpredictable. They may not be sure what kind of tenants they're getting into the space or what kind of work's going to be done in the space. And so that's really one of the keys that we speak with them about, is the future proofing. But look, we're giving you something that you can come in here and make adjustments to, whether that's color temperature, whether that's adding an additional sensor that, you're going to connect your HVAC system in there, and it's going to, the light fixtures are going to identify regulate the HVAC in the room. Or just something as simple as light levels, being able to go in, just like you shared in the beginning with the teacher, just saying, hey, this isn't working, we've got somebody in here now, and we're going to make these adjustments quickly. So you're right, we do find a lot of them have bad experiences in the past with lighting controls, or I was working with a customer the other day, they had 8 different lighting control systems throughout their buildings in a school district, because they had 20 some buildings in this area. So that integration is key. I think having that, the open protocols where people will be able to not have to struggle to learn 10 different systems is key.
So one question kind of
another
going,
on that.
yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Well, no, I apologize there. One add on to that, one of the things that seems to be very important to the building operators is if you think back to 10 years ago, sitting down at a computer and controlling your lighting control system was kind of like staring at the Matrix, and not really knowing what you're looking at because you don't address it every day. Hopefully your system's set up correctly and it's commissioned properly, and your system works until you need to make a change. And to your point, and your opening story was fantastic, Greg, that you walked in with a cell phone. Well, everyone is carrying a programming device today.
I think we lost Bruce.
Oh no.
Yeah, we just dropped him there. He's frozen. Bruce, come back in. And he was talking about Angela, he was talking about the ability to address these systems with the phone. I think that's their greatest strength and their greatest weakness at the same time. Is there a way that we can have this thing on desktop computers where it's on a server? It's, where I'll give you an anecdote. So if you
Sure.
go to the downtown Toronto, it's an enormous office tower now. It's having trouble renting its floors now. But in its heyday, it only cooled. So even in the frozen Canadian Toronto winter, the was cooling its tower. Its cooling was on. And if you went to the where the building operations was, there was 3 or 4 guys monitoring various deep lake water cooling. And so that's where they send ground source systems into the bottom of Lake Ontario to grab the cool water, the cold off the water, and they bring it back in, and that's how they were cooling the building. And they were watching these systems real time, working on their computers all day 15 years ago, 10 years ago.
Sure.
And that was critical infrastructure for them. They didn't care about lighting controls. You know what I'm saying? They had a lighting control system, but nobody knew how to use it. They did. I shouldn't be saying that about First Canadian Place. I don't know if they used it or not. But the point is that they were very active with watching their HVAC, their cooling in the tower.
Sure.
And this was a fundamental part of their operation, was monitoring that system. I've never seen that with lighting in a big building. I've never seen people giving that much attention to lighting. Is that going to change?
I mean, that's what we're trying. That's what we're hoping for. I mean, if our team's successful, we will change that viewpoint. Especially it's something as critical as those large building facilities. That's our hope. With the technology that they have right now and what people are working on, we kind of like to say we're making the lighting systems work harder for us now. They're not just providing illumination. So they are sitting there, they're seeing what's happening in a space. They might, as I mentioned, might be monitoring the temperature. They might be doing a kind of a body count. How many people do I have in this room, and making those adjustments. They may be listening to dangerous noises. We already have the capability now where they can sense that either a dangerous noise or extremely high temperature, and it can reroute people out of the building. They give them a safe path of egress. Whereas, 10, 15, 20 years ago, we only had one path of egress that we put in a building. And let's hope that was a safe way to get people out, depending on what was happening. So, we just see so many benefits to the technology besides just being able to dim or turn off your lights when no one's in the space.
But can I just comment to that?
Sure.
You envision a bunch of possible uses that are not currently being used right now. Is that a right way to say it?
They are being used right now, but we're really only seeing it in large, more sophisticated building types. But our hope is that this is a technology that's retrofittable, right? So it's very easy to to take that and give somebody that type of technology that only a new construction building would have had in the past.
And Bruce, you're back with us. I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah, I'm back.
Bruce is ready to go. Bruce is ready to go. He's got the lighting.
I'm
Bruce has the talk about lighting control switch on his back. We just switched it. Go ahead, Bruce. The floor is yours.
We just switched it back on. Well, and to Angela's point, the ability to do these things and to get into the information you were looking for wasn't readily or easily accessible and not very long ago. And today that data is literally at your phone, and it's very accessible, and the systems are now able to send you feedback and able to send you information and data that you as a building operator, would want and be able to access, and use it to better make, to work on your building, and I apologize for dropping off there, but, integrating to HVAC controls, now you're able to look at one series or one set of control points, and get some more of that data. So, the information that the building operators, really would like is now it's readily accessible, and easily accessible, and it's no longer the mega buildings, it's the smaller spaces. It's, we're able to bring it down to a much lower, denominator, much smaller building size, and different operators, different kinds of buildings as well. So,
and going back a little bit ways on the question that Michael asked is who's your customer? So your customer is actually the utility company, and then from there, you end up working with distributors and contractors. Is that correct?
Yeah, that would be a correct way to say it.
Okay.
I mean, I would like to share that, the utility companies see the extreme energy savings potential of having these type of lighting control systems like LLLC offers. And so that's why, we have a job, right? We're being paid to promote this technology and help people really understand it and feel good about it and implement it, because there's so much potential energy savings out there.
And do you have any of the markets you work in that you're promoting this? Are there rebates on all in every market? Or are there any markets that don't have rebates?
I mean, where Bruce and I are working right now, primarily in the Pacific Northwest, there's rebates available for this technology, and in some cases, very, very good rebates. But we're still not seeing that uptick that we really would like to see, even with a really strong incentive available.
Is that because they don't work in retrofit?
Yeah.
Greg's anecdote is not germane to the conversation. That's like, I haven't heard a lot of that. What I've heard mostly from Luminaire Level Lighting Controls is kind of, fussiness and difficulty with use. And I just wrote down here a note that I think it's the right time to bring up right now. So the distributed nature of lighting is both the promise and the difficulty with Luminaire Level Lighting Controls. It's the same thing. The distribution of these lights everywhere throughout the building gives you this sense that, wow, there's so much possibility if we could just get a handle on this. What could we do if we had the right sensors on every light fixture, and how could we commission it? But then with HVAC, you may have 10 points of key data coming from your HVAC system, your deep lake water cooling system, or whatever it is, an enormous building. You're going to have thousands of points coming from a lighting control system that need to be dealt with. And so there's almost a tyranny in the distribution where the promise lies. Does that make sense? The two are the tackling that problem, that ability to have so much input of information, so much relevant data coming back from you from a large building is very difficult. What are we using that data for? What are we telling you? Saying like we're going to make these paths of egress. Yeah, that's great. How do you commission that? Who's going to control that? Who's going to be in charge of that to make sure that's working properly in the emergency that happens? These are all the downstream problems where the promise becomes a lot more difficult in the field to commission and then manage moving forward. And I think that's where Greg, the Lighting Controls Integrators Council, which is a part of NAILED, where they're trying to pull together people that actually field integrate these systems and create a training program for them. We're working on that at NAILED right now, right? Lighting controls integrators, not something separate, not electricians, not distributors, right? These experts in this. If those you young people listening to this out there, if you want to get into a field that's probably going to be really big, somewhere down the road when, all these arguments that Angela, Bruce, and I are having right now about this, it's lighting controls integration or building controls integration. So should the industry come together and coalesce and create a standard, Angela, that everybody works on this protocol with this system and these prompts and all that sort of stuff? Or is it still time to allow different companies to create different systems? Where are we at in that cycle?
Yeah, some of the more sophisticated, concepts that I was sharing with the path of egress, HVAC integration, things like that. We're still fairly early on there. So a lot of those systems are proprietary. We have seen a couple of HVAC companies buying lighting controls companies to kind of have that ability in-house. Which I think is wonderful. My personal opinion, I would love to see the lighting manufacturers and the controls companies kind of get to that point where it's a shared, protocol, or it's open. Maybe it's just all Bluetooth. However that looks, I think it does make it a lot easier for the end use customer at the end of the day. But, to your point about talking to, specifically with each individual customer, I think with LLC, it's really just about what do you need in your particular space? Every customer is going to be unique and is going to have a unique situation. So I think, there's all these capabilities that we have, kind of like, buying a new car where you could have heated seats and, heated windshields and all that. You look at, what do I actually need? I may not need all those functions or capabilities, and you buy what works, the mix that works for you. That's what my hope is for these end use customers, and that their distributors and people working with them, really give them that education, and then look at, how the technology is going to work for them, and choose those options and the functionality they need. So like you said, so they're not dealing with all this data that they're really not doing anything with it.
Bruce, isn't it time to talk to these manufacturers and tell them that we're stronger together? That they're like 99% of all existing buildings do not have a Luminaire Level Lighting Controls, right? So, yeah, the market's wide open here, right? There's lots of room for everybody. Is it like when I talk to the integrators, Ron Kuzma, who's the host of the Lighting Controls podcast, which is produced by this same company, NAILED, and all that same group. He talks about, he likes opens. I don't know what I'm gonna describe what he says when saying this, but he actually builds these middlewares, which he writes software code to connect different kinds of lighting control systems together and get the data from them. And it seems like that's where we need to go, is to allow the software developers to create applications like an Apple Store or a Google Store, where individual players out there in the lighting industry can create and write their own software and do whatever they want because the code is open source, Bruce, or there's some way for these other experts to get in there and make something happen. In the same way, that guy that cracked the iPhone in 2008 and made his own app, Apple said, shut up, don't say anything. Let's see what this guy does with this. And next thing you know, you have the App Store with millions of applications to benefit our lives. Is there a way we can get the industry to come together around an open protocol, an open source, and allow the practitioners at the end of the line, at the front, distributors, the integrators, the contractors out there, to start writing their own unique applications using these lighting controls, rather than relying on the manufacturers?
Well, I think there's multiple prongs to your question, or multiple comments to your question. The first is really, are we looking to so that the manufacturers are all using the same protocol? I think that there is discussion between them. Is there a way to maybe take a little bit of proprietary but encapsulate it in a public source and in an open source communication?
Mm-hmm.
I think what's kind of interesting is if you look at the apps that are coming out from the manufacturers, they're tending to start to use the same terminology. They're taking the same functionality. So when you pick up an app from one, you can pick up an app from another, and they'll look a little more. They're more similar than their predecessors did. I don't know if we're there yet today, Michael, or if saying, hey, we're going to make an open protocol, if that's going to stymie innovation. We're still you're seeing new manufacturers hit the market all the time, and what we're able to do is really, really cool and some new things. But I'm not sure they're there yet on that side. I think we'd all like it. Anything that helps to drive adoption and energy savings with these systems, I think it helps all of us. And then it becomes, hey, who makes the best product and takes care of the customer the best, and those kinds of things. My guess is we're going to continue to go that way. As you're seeing more and more of the systems come out and saying, hey, we're BACnet compatible now. We're doing, we're allowing open, integration of other types of systems. These were things that were fairly complex, and now they're becoming fairly standard practice. And it'll be very interesting, and part of Angela's and our group's job is to keep up on this and see, and take information and questions like this from the field and take them back to manufacturers. We have a dozen manufacturer partners that we speak with on a weekly basis, and we bring feedback back. And we were at a show last week in Seattle and got some really good feedback from end users that talked about systems they had and the goods and the bads. And you take that information, you feed it back, and we're not just feeding it back to individuals, we're feeding it back to the group. And making sure that we continue to do things like podcasts like this, where we create conversation and we create good dialogue about what should it look like, what should it what should the next steps. And I think all of these are good conversations, and we'll see. But your point, I think, is something that we're discussing on a fairly regular basis. And is there a solution out there that doesn't limit innovation and doesn't limit new technology, but at the same time prevent, the end idea is to provide the best solution for the end user. So.
And I think one of the reasons you guys are on this show is you work closely with a good friend of ours, Brian Amundsen, at he's okay with us saying his name, at Pacific Lamp Wholesale. What specifically do you do? He's a lighting distributor, much like Michael and I are, and a lot of the people that listen to it. So how do you help the distribution angle? What do you do for him?
Well, I was very fortunate that Brian and I had worked together on many projects when I was a manufacturer's rep. And the part that's interesting, and what Brian is really good about taking and looking for opportunities that say, hey, let's look for something that may be a little more innovative. And where Brian and I worked on a project together was truly suited for LLC in a building campus where it was 40 and 50-year-old buildings. They really didn't know what was there. They wanted to bring in the latest technologies, and they really didn't know how things were going to be wired. And so we were able to use Luminaire Level Controls as two things: as a cost savings measure, because they weren't going to have to do a bunch of rewiring, and secondly, give the end user a solution that, as they change in the facility that we were at, was in a perpetual state of shifting cubicles and moving rooms and doing different things that they could work with. And we proposed several systems to the end user and allowed them to choose based on what they felt was the easiest solution to work with. And it actually ended up creating a really good relationship between the manufacturer and the end user on how things should work. And kind of rolling back to Michael's point, getting really good feedback from an end user and having a manufacturer step up and say, hey, that's a really great point we hadn't thought of. Let's make an adjustment. And out of that, we're probably on building 6 or 7 of the campus. And we're actually going back and making firmware adjustments, or Brian's team's making firmware adjustments to bring the oldest buildings up to match the newest buildings, which is kind of a neat thing. But Brian, took a great idea and a great thing and just ran with it. And now he uses it, all the time.
Brian, that son of a gun.
Figured out,
he's always chasing these things. Good for him. Brian Amundsen, son of a gun. Listen, we're coming up on 40 minutes here. What's interesting that you said, I think what you're describing, and this is where I think a distributor, like a solid nail distributor. So there's a lot of people don't understand that there's a good network of very strong lighting distributors throughout the United States. And these people supply equipment and understand how the equipment works. And they can help people deploy these control systems in their existing buildings without a heavy engineering cost at the beginning. So distributors make money selling people products and solutions, right? So the design is in sort of a technical sales process, and the deliverable is a working lighting system that is controllable. And so it's an interesting angle that Brian has captured there out in Portland or wherever heck he's working on this. And I think that's what you can do right now with lighting controls for people, especially if there's rebates available, whether it's per square foot or whether it's per light or whatever it is you're doing. This is a very valuable thing that people are going to be very interested in. Are the early adopters going to get nailed, Angela? I don't know. Will you come in? The people that do it now, are they going to be in trouble in 5 years? Or have we passed the early adopter phase?
I think we're just now past the early adopter phase. You had asked Bruce kind of what's something that we do to help distributors. I come from a distribution background. We're really trying to help, provide that message that you just mentioned, that they can help you come up with a solution that fits for your specific need, your specific building. So. We have some amazing case studies on Better Bricks, and one of them is a large school district, and they've implemented it. They've had it for about 5 years, and they ended up putting it in all of their facilities, and they've had no maintenance issues with it. And interestingly enough, the first install they did is a system that's no longer in business, like you mentioned.
What's funny is that I had a conversation about this morning with a condominium board, Greg, and you'll know condominium boards are notoriously cheap, okay? And they have the hardest time differentiating between partners, okay? And the problem with this condominium, they had a lighting control system in their garage, okay? And the building was 3 years old, and all the ballasts were burning out, and all the lamps were burning out like crazy. And I told them, we need to recommission that lighting control system in your garage. And they said, we don't understand why you need to do that. We love our lighting control system. I said, listen, ballasts don't fail at this rate after 3 years. And fluorescent lamps should be lasting. They still had fluorescent T8. The fact that you have so many purple lights and mercury starvation in your lights and all this kind of stuff everywhere is indicative of too many offs and ons throughout the day. The only reason this would happen is if a lighting control system was, set to 1 minute time delay. And so you had, 28 or 30 off and ons of this system all day long by the area that it's controlling, and we need to recommission those things. And, by the end of that speech, the board started to listen to me and realize that there is a reason sometimes why people are more expensive. And in the beginning, in the early adopter phase or wherever we're at with this, distributors can make a nice profit by specifying and commissioning and seeing these controls through to the end with the user so that they actually get the controllability they want from the system, which I think has been absent up until now, is that commissioning piece. And I think that, Greg's there. I'm thinking about it here in Toronto with some of this kind of thing. And I think that lighting distributors can make a good, solid profit if they partner up with a good manufacturer and they're able to see the project through to the end, which is the commissioning piece. And I think that's where a lot of people stumble, is when they're actually at the end of the road and they're trying to figure it out. And the Bluetooth and all that makes this easier than ever. The old days you had to wire everything. Now you don't have to do that. And so I think it's an interesting time. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, we have distributors who will charge to go back out 6 months later, a year later, check on the system, make sure everything's functioning. Just like you said, yeah, and you make a long-term customer as well.
Yes, and you have to explain to your customer that it's not set it and forget it. You have to come back and look at things and do them again, folks. If you made it all the way to the end of this, we're at 40 minutes here. Hey, if you don't have light bulbs in a warehouse, and you want to join a really cool new council, it used to be called the Lighting Controls Integrators Council, right, Greg? But now they changed their name to something else.
I can't
remember what it is.
It's a council.
It's a council of nailed, and you don't have to be a distributor to join it. You can be interested in lighting controls as an integrator, as a manufacturer, and they meet 4 times a year, and they're going to be creating educational programs. They're going to be asking Nailed for money to do stuff with lighting controls. And so, and they also have a podcast. It's called the Lighting Controls Podcast. And it's at lightingcontrolspodcast.com, producer. That's right, lightingcontrolspodcast.com. And, they don't put up with my bull crap over there. So go to nald.org if you want to join that. And, of course, special thanks to our friends down the easy folks, Greg, KeystoneTech.com. That's KeystoneTech.com. And, Greg, we got to talk about the Nailed Convention coming up in August. What's the dates? You have to know.
19th to the 21st, yeah. August 19th to the 21st, St. Paul, Minnesota, my hometown. Come check it out.
NailedCon. So go to nald.org and KeystoneTech.com. And thank you, everyone out there, for listening. Bye for now.